let me introduce you to our two speakers for this evening. Both of these speakers are here as part of our year-long series of events on the power of positive, celebrating human goodness. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it either on campus with some of the events that have occurred, and even the Courier has begun to develop some highlighted citizens from our community who also demonstrate many of the same positive qualities that have been really identified as important for us to live longer and healthier and happier lives. It's really my pleasure tonight to make the introductions, and I will get off this in just a second because you want to hear them because they are extraordinary. These are two extraordinary people, and we are very blessed not just to have them in our community, but certainly their willingness to come and speak to us tonight. They have a powerful message. They've lived this message, and it's a message that I think will impact us as we think about what they're saying. I'm going to make both introductions now. Jim's going to go first, and then we'll follow it with Bruce. So I'm going to make both introductions, and then I will get off and turn it over to Jim. Steffen grew up in Findlay, Ohio, where he played basketball at the University of Findlay. He earned a physical education degree. After college, Jim worked as a personal trainer in Chicago and San Diego at two of the top-rated health clubs in the country. He then came back to Findlay and began personal training in a small garage behind his house. He eventually established Jim's Gym Family Fitness, which grew to over 750 members and a 6,500 square foot facility. Jim sold the gym in 2007 and is now a full-time professional speaker delivering countless motivational presentations to schools, corporations, sports teams, and churches. After seeing the high fitness dropout rate, the devastation of childhood obesity, and the challenges for all overweight individuals, Jim's mission became to motivate people to start a physical and positive mental exercise lifestyle and to show people fitness can be fun. And you'll see that in a second. Jim is the author of Fun Fitness for Families, a co-author of Unleash Your Greatness, and is the creator of Jim's Boga and numerous other fun fitness activities. Jim is called America's Fun Fitness Coach. And our second speaker, Bruce Boguski, is an author, motivational speaker, trainer, columnist, and media personality, well known for his ability to inspire others to do the impossible. Bruce knows firsthand the attitude and skills required to overcome physical and mental challenges. At age 18, he was paralyzed as the result of an automobile accident. While doctors were wondering whether he could ever walk again, he was busy recuperating. 2 years later, he had regained full use of his body and went on to become a two-time state champion in racquetball, a football and baseball coach at Van Buren High School, and the men's and women's tennis coach here at the University of Findlay. Today, Bruce is president of the Winner's Edge, a peak performance consulting firm in Findlay. He has become an internationally known presenter on motivational tactics and mental toughness training for sports, business, and life. He has conducted over 2,200 presentations over the past 16 years. So would you please give me a warm Findlay welcome to both Jim and Bruce.
Thanks, John. Okay, thanks a lot, John. I appreciate that introduction. Coach Al Baker. Anybody know Coach Baker, the golf coach here at the University of Findlay? Yeah, Coach Baker was my basketball coach back in 1987. Oh, man. What's that old man for? You saying I'm old? Not very optimistic. Anyhow, Coach Baker taught the defensive shuffle drill. When Coach Baker blew the whistle and said, guys, line up. We're going to do the defensive shuffle drill. Sick feelings came inside of our stomach. For those of you that played basketball or play basketball, no one liked the defensive shuffle drill. It burned our thighs. It hurt our lungs. It was difficult. And 25 years ago, Coach Baker, he would imitate exactly how he wanted us to do the Coach Baker defensive shuffle, as we called it. He'd say, I want you to get your feet really wide like this, guys. I want you to get your butt down low, get your hands up. He goes, I'm going to blow the whistle. I'll point one direction. He goes, and I want you to snap your foot like this. He goes, I'll blow the other whistle. I'll point the other direction. You stay low. I'll point forward, I'll point backwards. He said, don't be sloppy. Don't be lackadaisical. Don't be off balance. He would say, be sharp, be motivated, be balanced. He'd say, guys, I want you to grit your teeth and dig in. Guys, this time, dig in. So we'd get down like this, and we'd get up, and he'd blow the whistle, point this direction. We'd have to snap this way. He'd point here. He'd point forward. We'd have to come up, go back. I mean, he'd want us to snap our foot, and if it was our hands weren't up like this, he'd yell at us back like this. What do you think we looked like after about 60 seconds of the defensive shuffle drill? We were so tired, he'd be pointing this way, we'd be upright like this, pointing my face would be like this. He'd blow the whistle, we'd go like this, and he'd blow the whistle again and say, Jeff, one of my teammates, your feet are together, Jeff. Told you to keep them wider apart. Jeff, you're off balance. Doug, another one of my teammates, your hands are flopping down here, Doug. Told you to keep them here. You look sloppy. He'd look at me and go, Jim, why are you doing that? He did, he would. He said, Jim, you look lackadaisical. Had to go home and ask my mom what lackadaisical meant that night. Not good. Coach Baker said, I told you to be sharp, motivated, balanced, grit your teeth and what? Grit your teeth and what? Dig in. I am going to motivate every one of you today to dig in to a physical exercise lifestyle and to dig into a positive mental attitude lifestyle, which what I call the Big O. And the Big O stands for optimism. Having that, as Helen Keller says it, that faith that leads to achievement. That everything is going to be all right attitude. That anything you take on in your life, you know it's going to work out for the best. As John said, I'm America's Fun Fitness Coach. Do you believe you have America's Fun Fitness Coach here tonight? That's Central and South America too. I became America's Fun Fitness Coach. It'll be 6 years next month. And how I became America's Fun Fitness Coach is 6 years ago, in February, I woke up one morning, looked in the mirror and said, Jim, you're America's Fun Fitness Coach. Called my mom. Mom, guess what? You're talking to America's Fun Fitness Coach. Called my wife, honey, guess what? Yeah, you're on the phone with America's Fun Fitness Coach. Great author Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, said, anything the mind can believe or perceive, it can achieve. Anything the mind can believe or perceive, it can achieve. So I wrote America's Fun Fitness Coach on all my marketing material, sent it out all over the country, the tri-state area, and now I'm getting hired all over as America's Fun Fitness Coach. And not only do I motivate people to start a physical exercise lifestyle, by the way, the first 5 to 10 minutes of my fitness motivational show, which I didn't bring all my props tonight because I want to talk more a little bit about your positive mental attitude, but the first 5 minutes, people usually will just get up and walk out because they just get so excited to want to start their physical exercise lifestyle. They usually can't wait the full 45 minutes of the normal speech. Appreciate those, they'll curb their enthusiasm a little bit here tonight. I figured out long ago, though, let me back up here. When you exercise, though, when you physically exercise, you release an endorphin in your bloodstream that fills up a gland in your body called the pituitary gland. I know that doesn't really mean a lot to me either, but what that does is gives you that exercise high, gives you that sense of well-being, gives you that positive mental attitude, that confidence, and the exercise high is the only way to fly. I made that up. Let me say that again. The exercise high is the only way to fly. After a good physical exercise, you cannot help but circle everything with an optimistic attitude. Synonyms for optimism are confidence, are hope, and cheerfulness. When I physically exercise, I get something I call movie projector joy. Movie projector joy. And I'll explain what movie projector joy means. 8th grade, Central Junior High School, here in Findlay. Mrs. Stover Smith taught science class. Hated science. Was not the best student. I wish I would have read more. I wish I would have studied more, but I couldn't stand reading, couldn't stand my homework. She knew I never did my homework. So whenever I would go into that class, she would always call on me, make me look really stupid. I hated going to Mrs. Stover Smith's science class. In fact, I used to get that Al Baker defensive shuffle feeling inside my stomach before I would go into that class. But when I would walk into that class and see a movie projector set up, knowing we were going to watch a movie that day, overwhelming sense of joy came over my body. Movie projector joy. That's the kind of joy I get when I physically exercise on a regular basis and circle everything with that optimistic attitude. Having the big O. I noticed long ago it wasn't the fancy treadmills in my gym that were getting people in shape. It wasn't the nice TVs and the neat elliptical trainers and all the fancy machines. The dropout rate was still very, very high. Only 18% of the population work out on a regular basis, where at least they're working out 60 to 90 minutes 3 times a week. Only 18% of the population. Only 10% of the population that join gyms actually stick with it and become a member of that gym long term. So the dropout rate was very high. What I found out what kept them in shape was their sacrifice, their target or goal setting, their enthusiasm, their patience and perseverance. That's my 5-step success program to anything you do in your life. The acronym STEP: sacrifice, target or goal setting, enthusiasm, patience, and perseverance. And of course, you have to circle that with that big O, that optimistic attitude. Like Helen Keller says, that faith that leads to achievement, that belief that when you start that physical exercise lifestyle, that belief when you go into that classroom to take that test, when you go into that job interview, that belief that you will achieve those goals that you set, that belief that you will achieve anything you go out to accomplish. The big O. This is a great story. I give speeches to the Hancock County Jail every year. Love going there. I go in once a year. I go into this big, about half this size room, and there's a wall right down the middle. The women come in first, and they all sit down. Then the men come in. They're not allowed to see each other. They sit down. Some of the men, some of the women have blue uniforms on. Some of them have orange uniforms. The people with the blue uniforms, misdemeanor offenses. They're probably going to stay there, serve out the rest of their sentence there. The people in the orange, they're in trouble. They have felony charges against them. They're awaiting to go to Marysville State's Penitentiary for Women, somewhere to get sent away. The lady in there one year was sitting in the front row, and she was wearing orange. She had killed her mother. She was on trial for killing her mother. So it's pretty intense in there. But they love it when people, outside speakers come in, they get out of their cells, and they loved the big O. The whole time they were circling their head like this and smiling and saying, yeah, big O, optimism, that optimism. At the end of the presentation, there was a lady in the front row wearing orange. I would guess her at about 5'2", 5'3", about 230 pounds, beautiful woman. She said, Jim, I have a question. I said, yeah, go ahead. She said, I'm getting frustrated. She goes, 2 weeks ago I started to exercise in here. I want to lose some weight. She goes, I stopped eating the dessert at dinner, and I was walking around the little courtyard in the back here, and I've been doing crunches. She goes, I'm frustrated, Jim. I've only lost 2 pounds. I said, hey, remember what I talked about losing body fat? It's impossible to lose more than 2 to 3 pounds of body fat a week. So, and remember what I said about the long-term and the short and long-term goals. The short-term goals, 8 weeks out, if you can lose 1 pound of fat for the next 8 weeks, I said, that's great. That's 8 pounds. I said, remember what I said about the long-term goals. Just think what you can do setting that 18-month goal. Just think how much fat you can lose. She sat up in her seat, got this big smile on her face and said, oh my God, Jim, that's great. She goes, I'm going to Marysville for 18 months. I looked at her and I said, kind of took me back. I'm like, way to circle that with the big O. Now, if that lady can get excited about going to Marysville State Penitentiary for women because she can set an 18-month fitness goal. Surely, we can muster up some enthusiasm and motivation and some optimism. Her being away from her family, her friends, her parents for that long and getting excited about that. That's having an optimistic attitude. So sacrifice the little things when you start your exercise lifestyle. Sacrifice the little things to get the big results. Little sacrifices, little things over that long-term goal make the difference. Instead of having 3 sodas a day, cut it in half for the next 8 weeks. Instead of eating ice cream every night in the summer, cut it in half and start walking 3 days a week. Write it on your notebook, your new goal sheet. Little things make the difference. And get enthusiastic about that workout. Get excited. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing ever great was achieved without enthusiasm." Get excited. I could always tell the people that would adhere to their exercise program when they joined my gym because they came in excited about it. They would say to me, "Anything you want, Jim, you let me know what to do. You tell me, I will do it. I will wake up in the morning. I will lift weights. I will run on the treadmill. I just want to lose this weight, and I'm ready to go." But when I would have that person come in under the influence of NMA, under the influence of negative mental attitude, and come in and say, "Jim, I just haven't done anything for 20 years, and I want to work out, Jim, but don't make me get up in the morning, Jim. No way." And Jim, treadmills, hate them. And I don't want to lift weights. I don't want to bulk up. But anything else, Jim, you want me to do, I'll do it. NMA, negative mental attitude. And I knew, and I hated to judge that person, but I would nurture them and call them by name when they came in. But 9 times out of 10, that person would drop out. But that person that would come in with that enthusiastic attitude, having that optimism to achieve incredible results, that person would adhere to their program so much longer and usually make a lifestyle out of it. So very, very important. Enthusiasm. Great football coach, Vince Lombardi, would always talk about having that enthusiastic attitude. In fact, a great quote of his, he would get his coaching staff in right before the beginning of the season. Everybody would be in the room. He'd be firing them up, giving them a nice motivational speech. And he would say, "Remember, everybody, if you are not fired with enthusiasm this year, you will be fired with enthusiasm." Love that quote. Patience and perseverance, John Quincy Adams says, has a magical effect in which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. Have patience and perseverance. When you start that positive mental attitude lifestyle and that physical fitness lifestyle, sacrifice, goal setting, enthusiasm, patience, and perseverance. Circle that with what? The big O. Have that optimistic attitude. And I guarantee it, before you go to bed tonight, you will fire off a big O to somebody. And when you fire that big O off, don't do a lackadaisical big O like Coach Baker said. Make sure those shoulder blades are back. Tuck that belly button back towards the spine. Arms strong here. Big O and smile inside that big O. Let me see something. Somebody give me something. Somebody give me a big O. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. John, what John mentioned before, and I want to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bruce. The caring, the people, the goodness of people. What's the... Celebrating human goodness. Something happened to me over in Fostoria, Ohio, about 3 years ago, when my son was almost 3 years old. His sister, my daughter, is 18 months older than him. And at this point, we were at Dell's in Fostoria. It's a nice little diner. It reminds me of Miller's Luncheonette here. My grandmother always liked it. Well, we went there early to go watch my cousins swim over at the YMCA. We were eating at Dell's, and of course, Ellie, my daughter, was into princesses, and so she had pictures of and dolls of long-haired princesses. And I noticed when we were sitting down there, I noticed the table right next to us. And I looked at this one lady over there. She had really long, straight hair. I call it 70s style hair, parted in the middle, you know. And she kind of had red splotches on her face, I noticed. And I noticed she was overweight. Judged her. Totally judged her. Especially when the server put down a big double cheeseburger and fries. She was drinking pop. I was just like, oh man, just judging her. All of a sudden, my son reaches across the table and says, sees her long hair, says, Daddy, is that a princess? And I'm like, what'd you say? What did, my wife's like, what did Jimmy say? I said, he asked if that was a princess. At this point, she got up, you get up, and you go pay at the counter. And for some reason, I said, tell her what he said. And we said, excuse me, ma'am, my little son, he saw your long hair, and he said you look like a princess. And her face changed. The red splotches went away. She stopped. She didn't want to leave. She smiled at him. It made her day. I couldn't believe it. She went and paid, came back, and just kept thanking him. Well, thank you, and this and that. And boy, did I feel like a pile of garbage. I thought about that the rest of the day. Little innocent Jimmy made that lady's day. And did she walk around the rest of the day smiling a little more? Did it uplift her a little more? Did she walk up a little straighter? I bet she did. From that little boy giving her that one bit of optimism, that one bit of that encouragement, that compliment. Taught me a huge lesson. Really did. Just wanted to share that story with you because that's a perfect example of human goodness, which I think we all should be doing more of. Don't be sloppy. Don't be lackadaisical. Don't be off balance. Be sharp. Be motivated. Be balanced. Grit your teeth and what? Big O. Big O, okay. Grit your teeth and what? Dig into the Big O. Big O. Now, if anybody does, let me grab this really quick here. Again, I wasn't the best student all through elementary school. I remember in second grade, Mr. Redmond, he had to tutor me because I couldn't read. I mean, my daughter's in first grade. She's reading pretty good right now. It's really making me think, wow, I really wasn't the best student. Wasn't the best student all through college. Wish I would have studied more. Do have a physical education degree from the University of Findlay. I'm an Oiler, and I don't like when people make fun of physical education degrees, like it wasn't that hard. Do you know the dimensions of a badminton court? Didn't think so, and it's not a birdie, it's a shuttlecock. Anyhow, now I'm getting hired all over the country. I wrote a book. I'm an author of a book. I get hired in elementary schools for Right to Read Week, and the author's coming to school. My roommates see me on Facebook, and they're like, Steffen, are you kidding? You're an author? No way. Anything the mind can believe or perceive, it can achieve. Circle everything you do in your life with that faith that leads to achievement, that big O, that optimism, and you can become an author. Check it out, everybody. Take a bunch of pictures of yourself on an exercise ball, put a cover on it, and all of a sudden you're getting hired all over the country for their author Right to Read Week. Isn't that great? Okay, there's actually words in here. There's like 10 chapters, and the first 7 are my 5 steps to success. My optimism story is in here. If anybody does want to purchase that, they can for $10 afterwards. I'll have the books over here. But if anybody does want to get on my fitness newsletter, feel free to put your name and email here. I do a monthly physical, positive mental attitude newsletter. It just gives you tips on exercises, and I always have a optimism story in there too. So afterwards, if you have any questions, you want to sign up for that newsletter, feel free. Bruce, you're on. Great job. Excellent.
We wanted to move it very quickly into one presentation to another, and one of the things that Jim and I were hoping for is that we could uplift you as an audience when you came here to hear us today. And I just love hearing, I can hear those stories over and over, and I laugh all the time when Jim talks. But sometimes, we have to be serious. Passion. My topic tonight is passion. And speaking to an entrepreneurial class, this is great. I'm glad that the class got to come here because I think, and talking with your instructor, I think we agree that everything in our lives comes from passion. And passion goes in ebbs and flows throughout our lives. When you heard my introduction, when I broke my neck as a 17-year-old kid, and I was in that hospital bed, and I couldn't walk. And I was in a coma for about 3 weeks, and the doctors walked in, and they said, "Son, you've broken your neck in 3 spots. You're never going to walk again. You're never going to play sports again. You're never going to coach sports again. You're never going to drive a car again like everybody else does. You're never going to have sex again." Well, I was only 17, and I hadn't had sex yet, and they were telling me I wasn't going to have it again. I was kind of upset. But for the first 2 months in that hospital, my nurse kept telling him, and my doctors, everybody said, "You'll never do this, you'll never do that," and that's all I heard. I remember how depressed I got, realizing that my life was going to be an empty thing, and I was never going to be able to accomplish the goals that I set for myself as a child. When my night nurse, Sarge, came in, and I met her for the first time, and I was able to wiggle my toes, and she told me, the first time that someone told me in 2 months that I'd be able to do something, she said, "If you can do that, you might be able to walk again." I remember how I cried. The first time I heard something that I might be able to do. And you know what? Passion just came inside me, and it was all, for the next 2 or 3 years, I did everything. I tried everything. And then I developed a passion of my own. I said, I never wanted a child or anyone to feel as helpless as I felt when those doctors came in and told me all those terrible things. I wanted to arm people with techniques they could use to build a positive attitude, to get passion, to set goals, to believe in themselves. And so I developed a workshop for athletic teams where I guarantee you win the next game or play the best game of the year or you don't have to pay me. And after the first 114 of these workshops, only 2 teams had not paid me. And then one of them was very questionable. But the point is, people were able to do super things just by me showing them 1 or 2 things that I learned about my broken neck. And I started another thing that I did. And I'm going to share this with you because we got an entrepreneurial class in here and because you might be having the same problem. I became passionate about this. I wrote a book, and my book is called The Testing Zone. And the reason I wrote it, because it was solving a problem for people. Because I became passionate about this too, because as a child, when I would study for my tests, I had to study all night long, because I'm like Jim. I wished I would have known more and been a better reader, but I wasn't. So I studied and studied and studied till I had all this stuff perfectly down in my head. And I knew I was going to do well on that test, but as soon as I got into the room and the instructor passed out the exams, I went completely blank. I couldn't remember anything that I studied the night before. Does anybody have that problem? When I talk to high schools, about 85% of the hands go up, because that's what stress does to you. So I became passionate. I wanted to help children. I wanted to help young adults perform better under pressure. So I wrote this book to help them. But something happened after the first chapter. I almost gave up. Because something that's sweeping across our country right now, maybe you've heard about it, it's called learned helplessness. It used to affect just children in school. Now it's affecting middle-aged people. It happens when people start losing control of their lives, that perceived control loss. A lot of people are throwing out their hands now and going, what's the use? I can say anything. I can vote for whoever I want to vote for. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. And the country is becoming learned helpless. But if you have never heard about it, maybe you've heard about the symptoms. The symptoms are that the person we're talking about never takes responsibility for anything that happens to them. If they're not successful, it's not their fault. They blame the teachers, the coaches, their parents. And they always have excuses for why things go wrong. And you, as a great parent, as a student, as a friend, you've given them examples and you've given them solutions to their problems, but they never try your solutions. That's called learned helplessness. Well, I almost didn't finish the book because of that, but thank goodness I met a young girl in Minneapolis. And I'm going to show you this just to show you the power of one idea. This girl was 26 years old. Her name was Shirley. She never learned how to read, and she never learned how to write, and yet she wrote a book. Now, when I found out Shirley had a book out, I was impressed. I said, well, if she can do it, I know I can do it. So I ran down to B. Dalton's at the mall, and I bought a copy of her book just to figure out how she did this. And I brought it to share with you today, because her book is called Everything That Men Know About Women, and it's empty. There's nothing in her book. Now, I had a feeling you would like that. Now, the point is, Could you have written this book? And the point is, if you have passion, you start becoming creative, which is one of the values for this month in the positive psychology program. You become more optimistic. You become a goal-setting machine. You get things done, and that's what happened with her. Now, this book of hers, anybody could have written this book. I mean, think about it. It changed her life, though. Just one idea. You know, the average person in America tries 3 new ideas a year. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you tried 1 idea a day? And guess what? They all aren't going to work. Doesn't make any difference. It only takes 1. See, she charges $3.50 for her book. Now, if you think our economy's bad, if you live in Canada, you pay $6.25 for the same book. Now, the first year she had this book out, she sold 1.2 million copies of this book. It probably is gag gifts for companies, for customers, I don't know. But 1.2 million, would that have changed your life? It would have changed my life too. So why didn't you write this book? Why didn't you have this idea? Here's why. If you went up to your friends and you said to them, I'm going to write a book, but it's not going to have anything in it, what would they have said to you? You're crazy. You're stupid. You're nuts. What a terrible idea. Why would you do that? And most of us would have quit right at that point. Walt Disney, when he built Disneyland, he went around and told people what he was going to do. And when he got 15 people to say it was a terrible idea, it was stupid, he went out and broke the ground for it because he knew he was onto something. I'm encouraging you to go for that idea, no matter what the idea is. I had a student come up to me at a high school assembly and say, hey, Mr. Boguski, I got an idea, but my idea is crazy. I looked at him and I said, good. I said, the crazier your idea is, the more money you're going to make, the more famous you're going to become, maybe the more people you're going to help. If you don't believe that, back when I was a kid, there was a guy who invented a thing called a pet rock. I'm serious. Mine came with a house. It came with a leash. And it gave you instructions on how to give your rock a drag on a Friday night, and then instructions on how to clean it up and give it a bath. The guy made $7.5 million selling stones to people. So I don't care what your idea is. I'm just encouraging you to go for it. I had another student come up to me and say, hey, Mr. Boguski, I don't have the talent to go for my idea. When I was learning how to walk again, I found out it doesn't take talent. If you're going to start your own business, whatever it is you're going to do in your life, all it takes is perseverance. It takes a belief in yourself, and it takes passion. If you really think it takes talent to be successful, then explain to me Paris Hilton. Okay, it does not take talent to be successful. Okay, but what does it take? You know that passion thing? I had a lot of passion when I broke my neck, and that, like I said, you start taking things for granted, and pretty soon it starts to wane. And then I had an accident in Columbus, Ohio a few years ago, and they told me I had a stroke. They were wrong. It wasn't a stroke. It was a misalignment of my temporomandibular joint, actually. But what happened during that stroke was important. It gave me passion again. I was in the hospital for 5 days, and they put needles in me, and they prodded me, and they gave me all these blood tests and everything, and I was sleeping on a bed this thick with sheets this thick, and it was terrible for 5 days. When I got into my car and started it up to come home again, I was reminded about passion. Because there she was on the radio. It was a jazz station, and she was singing to me. And her name, I don't know, I've never heard her before this. Her name is Alicia Keys. I've heard a lot about her since. And this song she was singing to me was saying something like very similar to this. She said, the next time you kiss me like you're never going to kiss me again. The next time you hold me like you're never going to do that again. The next time you love me like it's forever. And I knew she was telling me to get back into that moment that I had when I broke my neck. To get into every moment, to experience the things that life was throwing at me, whether they were good or bad. Just be passionate about it. If you don't believe this works, when you go home tonight, find that significant other and kiss them like you're never going to kiss them again. I guarantee you, amazing things start to happen right before your eyes because the big O is right. That has a double meaning there, I guess, but the point is, because that's what passion does for you. Now, about the ideas. What's it going to take to go for ideas? And entrepreneurs, listen to this. There's one reason, there's one thing that holds you back from starting your own business. There's one thing that stops you from going for your dreams. There's one thing that stops you from getting the things that you want in your life, and everybody here has it. It's located right here. They call it the reticular activating system. I don't like that term. I call it the little voice in the back of your mind. Now, you might not believe you have a little voice back there, but psychologists have proven that every one of us has a voice that talks to us about 50,000 times a day. That's how many thoughts the average person has. But you never hear the voice until you get in a pressure-packed situation. And then you can't shut the little sucker up. And it's telling you things like, you're going to miss this shot, and don't ask her out, she's too beautiful, and don't buy that car, it's going to break down, and don't apply for that job, you're never going to get it, and don't go to that school, it's no good. And pretty soon, you're paralyzed just like I was, but you're paralyzed by your thoughts. Now, if you don't think you have a little voice, if you don't believe me, let me ask you a question. How many of you, by show of hands, how many of you talk to yourselves? Raise your hand if you, whoa. A lot of people in here talk to themselves. But I think one of you over here, one of you over here, and I think 2 or 3 of you over here didn't raise your hand. And I understand that. Maybe you're new to the university, or maybe you're sitting by someone that you like, or maybe you're sitting by someone that you really respect, and you don't want them to think that you're wacko, so you're not going to raise your hand. But 3 things happen every time I ask this question, same 3 things. Number 1, when I ask people if they talk to themselves, they usually start giggling. And they go, well, you know, I did once a long time ago. I don't know, maybe. Second thing that happens, people start raising their hands, but they raise their hands in a very special way. They go like this. Don't want to be the only one. Third thing is amazing. First time I noticed this, I was working with a football team in Cleveland. I walked into the room with about 60 guys, and I said, okay, fellas, who in this room talks to themselves? Well, 2/3 of them raised their hands just like you did. But the other 1/3 of them were sitting there going, huh. Man, I don't know, do I talk to myself? I used to, but I don't anymore. This guy might be right. I guess I do. And the whole point is we all do this. But let me show you something about your little voice. Your little voice, ever since you were a little kid, has been conditioned to not tell you the truth about yourself. It lies to you about your abilities. The reason I believe this is true is because of an article that I read when I was writing my book in a magazine called Psychology Today. And in this article, it said that by the time a student is 18 years old in our society today, that student would have heard over 300,000 times from people very close to them, no, don't, you can't do that, that'll never work, what a terrible idea, who do you think you are? And guess what? It doesn't take 300,000 times of that to get yourself to start doubting yourself and to get the voice to start lying to you. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, come on, that can't be true. That's over 250,000 times by the time you're 18. That can't be true. But then I was shopping at a Kmart, and I was behind this mom who just had a baby, and the baby was strapped in her cart. And she had a 5-year-old son walking next to the cart. When they got to the checkout counter, the young boy reached for a candy bar. And Mom looked down at him and said, Jimmy, no, 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 no. 10 of them just like that. I started thinking, how many is this kid going to hear by the time he's 18? And you want to know how bad it's getting? In USA Today, right on the front page, they were doing research on the first words that babies say when they begin to speak English. Well, you know what? When I was a kid, you know, back in the 40s, first word out of my mouth was mama, followed by dada. Today, over 74% of kids, the first word out of their mouth, what is it? It's no. The second most common first word is don't, then mama, dada, and then can't. 3 out of the first 5 words are negative, self-defeating, dream-limiting words. And if you don't know how powerful those words are, watch. First, let me show you this. Let me show you that you have a voice and that it lies to you, okay? And then we'll go from there. And I need your help to do this. And all I need you to do to prove to you what I've said is true is to have you guarantee me that you're going to give me 100% while we do this. It's only going to take 20 seconds. So I need you to give me 100% for 20. Can you give me 100% for just 20 seconds? Can you do that? Okay, let's do it this way. Pretend like you like me, all right? Just act like you like me. And when I count to 3, I want you to say yes as loud as you can. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes! Good for you. Now I know you're going to give me 100%. So here we go. I want you to take your left hand, raise it up in the air. Get it up in the air as high as you can get it, as high as it'll go. Good. Great. That as high as it goes, young lady? Good. That as high as it goes back there? That as high as it goes over there? Good job. Now that your hand, good, stay right there. Now that your hand is up as high as you can go, I want you to take and raise it just 1/4 inch higher. Go for it, 1/4 inch. Good, put your hands down. Thank you, sir. Now, did you just see what happened? I just asked you to give me 100%, and you said, yeah. Then I asked you 3 times, is your hand up as high as it'll go? And you said, uh-huh. And then I said, go 1/4 inch higher. What'd you do? You did it. The young man here, he stood up, and guess what? When I said go 1/4 inch higher, he got on his toes. It doesn't make any difference what level you're at or how good you think you're doing something. You can always do it better if we can overcome the voice. Well, what can we do to get the voice on our side? Here's a few things to remember. Number 1, always remember this. What time is it? Anybody know? 7:40. Okay, well, what does my watch say? Oh. My watch is kind of crazy. There's nothing in my watch. It's empty. Now, people always look at me and they go, why would a guy wear a watch with nothing in it? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, it was really cheap. And number two, it reminds me of the only moment that I can do anything about. When is that? It's right now. This is it. It's the moment where you're all perfect. You haven't messed up. And if you have, it doesn't make any difference. It's over. It's done. You can't do anything about it. This is the only moment that makes any difference in our lives, which is why I like making lists about our dreams and about setting goals, because when you do that, you bring goals and dreams into the now, take them out of the future, where you can work on them. What does it take to stay in the now? Let me give you a few techniques to do that. Ever see a movie called The Bucket List? Let me ask you this, because I saw the movie too. Has anybody here, when you left that movie theater, did anybody start their list? Good for you. I'm really proud of you. The reason is I'm a motivational speaker, and I never even thought about that. I'll tell you, I got into the car. I took my daughter, Allison. I got into the car, and I said, Allison, what are you doing? Because she had her diary out. She said, well, Dad, I'm making my list. I said, man, I'm really proud of you, Allie. I didn't even think about that. Can I see that list? She said, no. And you know what? She's been to my seminars. If you're going to make your list, do it on your own. Be in a room by yourself where your parents aren't. You know, your parents have an uncanny way. Maybe you've never noticed this yet, but they have an uncanny way of talking you out of doing the things that you really want to do in your life. They'll shrug their shoulders and they'll do that, and they'll go, I'll raise you better than that, and they'll roll their eyes. But it's not their lives. It's your life. It's your life. And that's why we have to write down the things that we want to get accomplished. Now, she showed me the list 2 or 3 days later, and I couldn't believe I lived with a little girl for 21 years, and I didn't know these things. She wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, hike all the way down to the bottom, all the way back up. She wanted to go to Hawaii, swim with the dolphins. She wanted to graduate in the top 5% of her class at the college at the University of Toledo and have a job in her career already offered to her by the time she graduated. She wanted to go to a major league, see 6 different ball games in 1 week at different major league park every night. She wanted to do all these crazy things. I had a lot of fun going to those ballparks with her because that was the first one she got accomplished. Then I had a speaking engagement actually on the west rim of the Grand Canyon. Somebody had to do it, so I thought I would throw my hat in the ring. When I went, I called Allie. I said, Allie, you want to go? She said, Dad, you know I want to go. I introduced her to Joe Ty and to a fellow named Tim Britton, who was a physician from Orlando. They took her into the canyon, and a day and a half later they came out, and when she crossed it off her list, it was priceless, the look on her face. And you know what? She could have had another one done, because we got home, and 3 weeks later, Tim called her. And he said, Allison, I'm going to Hawaii in 3 weeks, and I know you want to swim with the dolphins, and I'm going for a medical conference. I'd like you to come along. And I thought, she's going to get another one. I'm in my study, and she's in the other room, and I hear her say, gee, thanks for calling, Tim. I'm so glad you did, but I'd love to go to Hawaii with you, but it doesn't fit in with my schedule right now. I hope we can still be friends. See you later, Tim. I said, Allison, I thought you wanted to go to Hawaii. She said, Daddy, I'm going to get there. I said, honey, I think it's going to cost me some money. You could have gone for free with Tim. Why didn't you go? She said, Dad, you didn't walk out of the canyon with Tim. Every step we took, all he talked about was finding a young girl, sort of like me, that wanted to settle down and get married and have 5 kids, had to have 5 kids. And I could stay home and take care of those kids and watch the house while he was out doing his medical conferences. Daddy, ever since I wrote my list down, I realized there's so many things I want to get done before I commit myself to someone like that for the rest of my life. I was never more prouder of my daughter than when she told me that night, until she sent me the picture in the lagoon in Hawaii, kissing the snout of the dolphin that she'd swum with for 4.5 hours. And she did it on her own. But she swears to me today, I'd have never done it, Dad, if I didn't have it on my list and kept reminding myself every day that that's what I wanted to get accomplished, and putting money aside. When you're starting your business, when you're going for your dreams, you write these things down. A whole different psyche steps in when you write things down. It increases the passion. And you must speak positively to yourself. See those words I told you the kids use? They hold you back. There's a few words you should never use. One is a negative contraction. You've already used it 10 times today. You got 12 more times left. And every time you use this word with your friends or your coworkers or your teammates, they do the exact opposite thing you want them to do. That's how powerful the word is. In fact, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to show you. What I'd like you to do right now is do everything that I ask you to do for the next 10 seconds. And when the 10 seconds is up, you tell me what the word is, and you'll see what the word is. You ready? As quick as you can, put your hand up. Put your hand down. Put your hand up. Put your hand down. Put your hand up. Last thing, pay attention. Don't put your hand up. Don't put your hand up. I said don't put your hand up. Okay. What's the word? Don't. What did don't just do to you? You paralyzed you, made you think, made you hesitate. What's your name? Raina. Raina still doesn't know what the heck I want her to do. She's sitting here going, and guess what, Raina? It's not your fault. It's my fault. Here's what just happened to Raina's brain. Did you know your brain thinks in pictures? If you don't think your brain thinks in pictures, then answer me this. Has anybody ever come up to you and said, hey, you know what? I remember your name, but I can't place your face. No, that's never going to happen to you because we got the faces down. It's the names we can't come up with because our brain thinks in pictures. Now, can you see a don't? Can you hold a can't? Can you kick a wouldn't? There's nothing there. So your brain lets those words go right through because there's no picture to hook up. And all you hear is what's next. So when I said don't put your hand up, what'd your brain hear? Put your hand up. If you don't believe this works, watch. I'm going to ask you all to do something for me, and I'm going to ask you very nicely, but I'm going to use the word don't. And because I use the word don't, you're all going to do the exact opposite thing I want you to do. Please don't do this. Not one of you. Don't you dare. Please don't do this. Don't you dare think of Brad Pitt. Anybody here read a book called The Secret? In that book, in that literature, it tells you that if you focus on what you don't want to have happen, you let it in. And then when you get it up here, your body makes it true. If you don't believe that, anybody play golf? Well, next time you play golf, when you're on the first green and the other person's putting, look at that person and say, hey, don't leave this one short, because those balls never make it to the hole, I guarantee you. The Cleveland Browns are playing the Denver Broncos quite a few years ago. They're all ready to go in for a touchdown to win the game. And two guys in the huddle look back at Ernest Biner and say, hey, Ernie, don't fumble. And what does Ernie do? That came right from Bud Carson's mouth. He fumbles. What could they have said to Ernie? Hold on to that ball. Head to the end zone. Run hard. Score. Because that's what allows you to overcome. Now, maybe you saw that Michigan game a few years ago in the NCAA finals. Chris Webber's dribbling down the court. The coach is yelling at him, don't call timeout. What does he do? Timeout. When are we going to learn? If you want somebody to do something for you, tell them what you want them to do, and they'll do it. If you tell them what you don't want them to do, they're going to do that too. And you know, if you hang around with someone that's always saying stuff like, you know, I should have done that. I should have done that. I should have done that for sure. You know what? If you say the word shoulda, what moment of time are you in? You're in the past. Next time you hear someone say that, look at them and say, hey, you're shoulding on yourself. Say it slow. And you know what? They're going to laugh just like you did. And when they laugh, the next time they use that word, they're going to remember, and they're going to use a different word to reprogram their brain, to do the correct thing. See, there's a lot to this passion. There's a lot to the big O, the optimism. There's a lot to a positive attitude. There's a lot to keeping it there. One thing that'll keep it there for you, and I'm going to end with this. One thing that'll keep it there for you for a long time is to learn how to smile. And if you can't smile, like sometimes I won't feel like smiling because bad things happen, then carry your own smile. And I take this thing everywhere I go because I find out that if I use this and change a person's emotional state, I can change their performance. Your ability to get into the zone. You know what the zone is? The zone, not the auto zone. The zone is that place where everything's going your way. You've been there before. You're on a roll. You can't be stopped. Everybody's nodding their head. Customers are buying your product. Everything's going your way. Did you ever have a day like that? Or a minute? Second, maybe? Okay. Well, you know what? Smiling, the way that you feel, your emotions allow you to get into that zone. One story to end with. I was in Tennessee doing a seminar for some students on testing skills. On the way back home, I took a detour because it's beautiful down there, and I was going down this mountain. And there's a 300-foot drop-off over here. There's a double yellow line over here, and a fellow pulls up behind me in a red pickup truck, and he's going like this. Now, there's nowhere for me to go. And then he starts beeping the horn and flashing the lights on and off. And I'm starting to get upset, getting nervous a little bit. I see a little piece of gravel on the right-hand side of the road, and I pulled over as far as I could before going over the edge, and I turned around and I said, come around, idiot. Come around. Now, the guy came around, and when he did, I went. And you know what? Not only did his attitude change, but so did mine. And I was so proud of myself for controlling my emotions. And I think he really liked it, because when he went by, he said, hey, buddy, you're number one, as he was going by. And I really appreciate that kind of recognition. Let me share one last thing. What time is it, actually? Let me just make sure we got there. Oh, good, good. One last thing. Because I was just working with a basketball team at Van Loo, the boys' team. They have a pretty good team this year. They had a big loss last week, and the coach said, we want to regroup. We want to get back to the place we were at. I walked in, and I asked them, one of the students was in the front row. I said, what's your name? Allie. My daughter's name is Allie, too. But this fella said, his name was Tom. He says, Tom. I said, Tom? I said, next time someone asks you what your name is, you look them in the eye and you go, my name is Tom, sir. And I said, if you could, if you're standing up, make sure you throw your shoulders back and you tell them, I'm Tom. I said, what's your name? The fellow says, I'm Stuart. I said, Stuart, next time someone asks you your name, you say, my name is Stuart. Next fellow I went up to, I said, what's your name? He said, Jonathan. I said, and the next person I went up to, I said, what's your name, son? He said, my name is Rex. Ask me again, I'm going to knock you down. You know what? He was starting to get it. You know, your name, you hear it so many times in your life. Sometimes it can become an extension of you. So when someone asks you what your name is, you let them know who you are. And when you shake that hand, you hold it out. That's a good one. Okay, Rainey. You hold the hand out. You make a firm handshake. You make their eye contact, and you shake their hand firmly, and you smile when you look them in the face. Well, we were talking to this team, and I said the one thing you can do that will really change your performance is to start using affirmations. Now, if you don't know what an affirmation is simply saying positive things to yourself about yourself. They're always done in first person, present tense, like they're already happening to you. Let me give you an example. My favorite affirmation is this: I am always calm and confident under pressure. I am always calm and confident under pressure. Now, people look at me and they go, come on, man, you mean saying good stuff over and over is going to change your life? No, it changes your actions. If you don't think you can change the way you think and feel by repeating things over and over, let me prove that you're wrong. Has anybody here ever been to Disney World? Well, then you proved you were wrong. Because if you're like me, when I go to Disney World, first place I'm going is the Magic Kingdom. Because I want to feel like a kid again. And I got to tell you, I always take the boat over because the horizon sort of creeps up on you. And I always get chills when I first see Cinderella's castle. And I go through Cinderella's castle, take a quick left, second right on the right, I go in there, and that ride is called It's a Small World. Anybody ever been on that ride? Then you tell me, when you get off that ride, what song are you humming for the next 3 hours walking in? Your heads are going like that, and you can't stop them. Well, guess what? That's how affirmations work. They come back into your mind when you least expect them to be there, especially when you use them a lot. It's like advertising yourself to yourself. Do you think advertising works? If you don't think advertising works, watch this. Finish this sentence for me. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Good for you. Now, let me tell you something. Advertising is so powerful that what you just repeated back to me has not been heard on radio and television for 18 years. Here's one that I can never figure out. Winston tastes good. I can't figure this out. Did you know that, and I can prove this, that advertisement was banned by an act of Congress? You couldn't have heard it because it was banned 47 years ago. That must be handed down in the genes or something because you could never have heard that. How about this one? How do you spell relief? R-O-L-A-I-D-S, Rolaids. The other day I was speaking at the Cleveland Clinic and I'm talking to doctors. I said, how do you spell relief? And they said, F-A-R-T. Time joke. We had a good time with that group. But the point is, let me end with this. The king of affirmations was somebody you all know. His name is Muhammad Ali. What did Muhammad Ali say to himself every day about himself? He said float like a butterfly, but he actually said, I am the greatest. And guess what he became? The greatest. I just did a workshop with a fellow named Randy Couture out in Las Vegas. And Randy Couture has an affirmation that he uses to keep his body fighting when he's losing consciousness. That's how powerful this little technique is. Saying positive things to yourself. If you don't believe me, just watch. We're going to take a page out of Muhammad Ali's book. And I want you to turn to the person sitting on either side of you, shake their hand, look them in the eye, and say, hey, being me is the greatest. Go on, shake their hand. Tell them, being me is the greatest. Go on, have some fun. Good for you. Okay, you can stop. What's everybody in the room doing right now? You just changed your emotional state. And if you change your emotional state, you change your performance. Optimism, passion, positive attitude. Bring them into your lives. And all the goals you've talked about, all the goals you've written down for yourselves, you're able to achieve. I know. They told me I'd never be up here standing in front of a group, speaking like this again. Passion was what got me here. Optimism is what's going to keep me here. I want to do this. I never want to retire. I want to get young people like you to laugh, to have fun, to realize the power they have inside themselves to do anything they want. To overcome what the other people are saying to us about what they think we should be doing. It's your life. Go for it, and when do you go for it? Now, this is it. Hey, thanks for coming tonight, and John, thanks for having us in the stage. Thanks, Jim.